Hello internet! Are you struggling to do damage? Are you perhaps stuck, step bro? If you answered yes to any of the questions, don't worry, there's a solution. Today we'll be covering the topic of how to do more damage, beginner edition. The game has only been out for about 3 days and most beginners might be struggling to see a significant increase in damage on their DPS. So here's a list of 3 ways that you can try to increase your damage. This guide is mostly for beginners since I'm also only a 3-day-old player and there just aren't much you can do about your gears at the moment. By the way, do not commit all your energy on the purple gear. Not a good idea. Coming in third, we have team comps. If you're uninformed, there are various characters in this game and each of them follow a certain path. These paths are essentially classes. For example, Nihility is a Debuffer, Harmony is a buffer, and the Hunt is a single target damage dealer. If you're looking to increase the damage output, you need to have a team composition that allows you to do that. After building and playing with a lot of characters in the game, I've realized that Nihility and Harmony are the recipe for fatality. That rhymed hella good. Let's start with Nihility. This path essentially means debuffers. There are various different debuffs that exist in the game, and to increase your damage output, you'll be needing the decreased defense debuff. Just triple D's. It's pretty hard to pronounce, I'm not gonna lie. To show you how crucial this debuff is, here is Dan Hang attacking a mob normally. But if I first apply a decreased defense debuff, Dan Hang's damage has now increased significantly. This is one of the best debuffs that exists in the game and sets things up nicely for a DPS to go crazy. The absolute best debuffer, if we're strictly trying to increase damage output, would be Pella. With the light code, Resolution shines as pearls of sweat. Her technique has a 100% chance to instantly attack and lower defense on the enemy by 20% for 2 turns. If you have this light code over, she have another 60% chance to apply ensnare if she attacks, which is essentially also a decreased defense by 12%. These two effects stacks. Wait, pause. I did a little oopsie, so exposed here is actually from Pella's ult, not from her technique, but they actually all stack together, so Pella's technique could actually stack on top of these two. So yeah, Pella's crazy good. What I'm showing right now is from Pella's ult, not from her technique, but if it was from her technique, the defense would have been dropped by 20% to 35 here. And back to the video, which means that the enemy will have a big decrease in defense if you land both of them. This will allow your DPS to go ham on the enemy. They don't wear off unless the enemy takes a turn or 2 and shakes it off. So yeah, it would be ideal to have your DPS take multiple turns during this period of time. If you don't have Pella, well, she's on the banner right now, so you can get yours. But if you still don't have her, you can always just utilize the light cone on other Nihility characters. Now that you understand Nihility, it's time you also understand Harmony. The path of Harmony basically means the character is a buffer. Buffers in this game help you to increase your stats and makes it easier for you to take a turn or do more damage overall. I'm sure you have heard of Bronya being a very strong buffer, which, well, she pretty much does all of that. By buffing your DPS with any damage amplifying buffs like attack, crit damage, or damage delta increase, your damage can get higher. But you know how to go to the moon with this? Nihility and Harmony both in a team. Decrease the enemy's defense, stack all the buffs on your DPS, and let a buff DPS go ham on a bunch of weakened enemies. As you can see on the screen, yeah, that's quite a bit of damage. To conclude, get a character that decreases defense, a character that can buff your DPS, and yeah, have those both in your team, and you'll see your damage increase by a significant amount. And the second way to increase your damage are Relics sets and Planetary Ornament sets. If you don't know what the second one is, they're basically these two little thingies. Just like Relics, they give you certain stat increase, and they have their own 2-piece set effects as well. As a beginner, you should have received a bunch of free relics from completing the story and quests, and in my opinion, the absolute best DPS set as of the earlier stages of the game is the Musketeer of the Wild Reach set. This is pretty self-explanatory. You get more attack, more speed, and more basic attack damage. It is also the easiest relic to come by for beginners, so be sure to equip them on your damage dealer. You probably already know that though, so yeah, here I like to just focus more on the Planetary Ornaments. If you're really looking to increase your damage output, you can consider using the Fleet of the Ageless set on your non-DPS. This set increases all allies' attack by 8% if the wearer's speed reaches 120 or higher. In early game, having a free Natasha as a healer is enough to pretty much heal you through most of the content. So if you want to see big numbers, you can try to equip the Fleet of the Ageless set on your healer, your buffer, and debuffer at the same time. But here's the issue. You must reach 120 speed for it to even proc, so how do you even do that in early game? Simple, we use Asta. Asta is a buffer that not only increases attack on all allies, but also increases your speed by 37 on her ultimate. On your screen, you see a pretty good example of this. Pella dropped the enemy's defense and Asta used her ult. I have Fleet of the Ageless set on these 3 characters. Now that they got plus 37 speed, they reached over 120 speed and Fleet of the Ageless is now in effect. Since there are 3 of them on my team, everyone got an 8% attack increase 3 times. Here's the before and after, and here's the math. Basically, it checks out and you get 3 8% attack increase, which means that they stack on each other. Guys, I know I raved about being Asian and Chinese, and that means I can't be wrong at math, but I'm actually kind of wrong in this case. Well, not at math though. I'm wrong because I forgot to put Fleet of the Ageless on Pella in this fight, so I only got 2 set bonuses. So yeah, if you are actually looking at these formulas, this is where the issue is. So I could have gotten 3, but I only got 2 because I forgot to put the set on. So yeah, the numbers still tally up though. They do stack on each other, and yeah, enjoy the video. All of that on my Celia is like a fat 180 attack increase, which is pretty decent. On Celia herself, I also have the Space Ceiling Station Ornament set, which gets me 12% attack when she reached 120 speed or more. For Celia is pretty easy, but if your DPS is someone else, you might have to use Asta to utilize these set effects as a newer player since she is free. And it's also the most accessible buffer for most anyway. Or you can just pull Branya and just win in life, I guess. When will I get her, man? Darn. And finally, the way to increase your damage as an early game player is attack and crit rate. You think this is an obvious advice, but I like to actually focus more on how important crit rate is. Here's what happens when my Celia doesn't crit. Here's what happens when she does with the same setup. See? I'm definitely so funny, dude. Of course, if we move towards the end game, we have better relics that will help us out with any stats. But if you're just starting out and the free Dan Heng is your only source of damage, giving him a light cone that boosts his crit rate and attack will increase your damage output by a lot. I'm not focusing too much on crit damage because you probably have a hard time getting a lot of crit and attack anyways as a beginner. But yeah, overall, if you want to see a significant increase in your damage output, get more attack and some crit rate on your DPS. The best light cone for that would be Celia's in the night. Just free stats here and there, you know, every stats are free. It's just too easy for her. Or you can go for only silence remains, which gets you most of the stats you need. If you don't have all those, you can always go for the simple darting arrow, I guess. These are strictly saying the hunt characters though, so if your DPS is from erudition or destruction, there are other options. But essentially, try and get crit rate and attack. The more you can get them to be, the more likely you can pair that with a good setup and nuke the enemies with crazy damage. If you're lucky enough to get good crit rate substats on your relics or a crit rate main stat body, you'll definitely see more crits, which means significantly more damage, especially early game. And ladies and gents, that is all for my beginner's guide to do more damage. I hope you, well, do more damage, I guess, after this. I'll be covering all things Honkai Star Wars, so be sure to drop a sub if you like. And yeah, that is all for today. Take care.